Welcome to Wealth Coffee Chats, folks, for your daily live updates. Get the most out of today's episode by participating in the chat. Make sure you ask some questions, be part of the conversation, have a bit of fun, grab a coffee or a tea, take some notes, and get ready to start your day, folks. Quick few housekeeping rules, though. No spamming, no advertising or self-promotion in the chat. That's not on. Be kind and respectful to everyone when participating. And most of all, have a good time. Real estate investing can be your biggest asset. It also can be your most expensive asset when it comes to getting it right or getting it wrong, folks. It can be time-consuming, stressful, and that's why here at Positive, we have what's called a 6-star team, a full-service team that provides integrated wealth and property investing solutions and services simply designed to help you progress towards your goal of passive income through your property portfolio, folks. Make sure you check out our other podcasts on the Positive Mentor Network. Not only is there Wealth Coffee Chats, there's the Urban Property Investor. Drops every Wednesday with straight talking investing strategies and lessons with Sam Saggers. Property Investor Tales. This is where our clients, you guys, share real life stories from property investing, hosted by some of our advisors and strategists. And that's done every fortnight, dropping every Monday. Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, folks, that debriefs the week that was in the world of finance and property, hosted by yours truly, Jason Witten and Andy Fenton on Fridays. Hey, good morning, folks.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat.
Hope you're well, folks, wherever you are.
There it is, team. Morning. Morning, wherever you're tuning in from today.
Early bird gets the worm, they say. Here at Positive, we offer a 6-star team. It's a team that help you at every stage of your wealth creation journey.
Hey, morning, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Wealth Coffee Chat. Great to be here today. I'm stepping in for Jason. He's got some things on. So if you haven't met me, my name's Sam Saggers, and I'm the Director of Property here within the 6-star team. So a big part of my job is really based around asset selection. What type of real estate would make a good investment and where would make a good investment. I spend all day, every day in that space. So it's quite exciting. It's a great role. I get to see a whole bunch of cool properties and just work out how to make money. So who doesn't like that? So we've got a few people jumping on. We got Bunty. Good morning. Thank you for saying good morning. Appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are having a great Thursday morning. But yeah, your regular host is away today, so it's all me. But today I wanted to sort of jump into some facts and figures around the property cycle and really challenge some concepts around where the cycle is at, and also just see where you're at when it comes to what next for you as a property investor. So today we're going to go through some slides, and we did a big event last night, actually a pop-up mentoring live event in Sydney. So lots of people at that event sort of mentioned they tuned into this show, so that's great. Maybe you're tuning in again. You might get another lesson from last night or two. So thank you for coming along, everyone. We had a good 50-odd people spend their Wednesday evening with me learning real estate. So that was really awesome to not only do digital, but also a live event. And of course, a big part of everyone's journey is picking up tips and strategies around real estate. So make sure you tune into those podcasts and jump onto those live events when they're around. But I might just share some slides. I was having a bit of trouble with it before, but it should work. So you guys can see that, no doubt. Let's have a look at what's going on in the economy. So I thought we would start with just explaining that the real estate market is very much underpinned by employment. If there is low levels of employment, there is usually a problem in the real estate market. When people don't feel safe in their job, they're not exactly going to rush out and buy real estate. But as the numbers report, we're at a basically 4% unemployment rate, which is really, really low. For example, when I left school in 1992, the unemployment rate was well over 10%. So we've come a long way. Everyone who wants a job can have a job in this country, which is great. That certainly underpins the real estate marketplace. We look at inflation, it's a bit of a miracle, really, where we've come from to where we have arrived. And you can look there in mid-2022, inflation of 7.2%, huge numbers. And we've fallen right back to really a soft landing of inflation coming in at a level where the economy needs it. If you look at, I guess, the bottom slide there, or the bottom corner, you can see the economy basically has ended up in a very soft landing. If you look at the vertical access point, you can see the inflation rate there. And if you look at the horizontal, you can see the GDP growth rate. And really, we've come from inflation to soft landing. And it could have ended up in a different place. You could go from, for example, inflation causing such a problem to the jobs market that your GDP stops growing and you end up in a recession. Or even worse, you could have ended up in a place where inflation was not eradicated and you've got a recession. So in other words, things cost more, but people don't have jobs. So it's fair to say the powers that be have got this to a soft landing, where you're going from high levels of inflation to effectively inflation under 3% and GDP growth at sort of 2.5%. And for Australia, that's where it likes to be. It likes to be have a little bit of inflation in the system, but not to the levels where it was during COVID. So it's an economic miracle. We've landed in a soft space, which is good, and that'll probably mean rates can start to come down as well. Obviously, if we look at GDP growth, we can see we're kind of passing through the eye of the economic output storm for Australia. It's a bit low, but the future forecast is a higher economic output as well for Australia, which is good. Generally, that then links to a level of wage growth. But also underpinning the Australian property market is the low level of supply. You can see here where basically at a 10-year low when it comes to new approvals coming through the system. And effectively, we don't necessarily have an approvals problem here in Australia. We have a cost of supply problem when it comes to building more real estate. And if we look at, for example, the low levels in major cities like Brisbane here and Melbourne, you can see just by looking at the vertical graphs just how low the supply is going into those marketplaces compared to previous eras. And of course, if you look at, say, 2014 in Melbourne, there was, the vertical access was much higher, but also Melbourne had 1 million less people in 2014. So you've got more population and less real estate being produced, which usually leads to higher prices. But we can see here on this slide, it's really just outlining the deficiencies. If there was excess stock, the bar graphs would be pointing downwards, but they're all pointing upwards. And we've never really fixed the supply issue here in Australia. It's always been a relative undersupplied marketplace, and it's going to continue to do that as well. So this month, the Reserve Bank's going to meet, I believe, next Tuesday, and the market is pricing in a rate cut. We can see that the market expectation on the left there is 95% as of the 31st of January, that there will be a rate cut. So different banks have different forecasts for rate cuts, I guess one of the big things that has already started to occur is fixed rates are being cut. So the banks don't want to be caught out. So they're cutting fixed rates, which means maybe that's a lead indicator for variable rates also being cut. The other, I guess, telltale sign of what is happening is the population growth rate. Obviously, migration is a big factor here in Australia. New migrants don't bring with them houses. They rent when they arrive, and you've got some big overseas migration, which is unfolding. But if we look at the population growth by increment, the red one in the bottom left or the bottom right, depending how you're viewing this, you can see that 2024 was a massive year, as was 2023. You had basically over 1 million people join our system, both by natural increase and migrational increase during those 2 years. So if you look at 2023, it's over 600,000, 2024, over 500,000. Put those two together, there's 1 million people, 1.1. And by the end of 2025, if you count those 3 years, we should have another 400. So about 1.5 million people over 3 years worth of immigration and population increase. So it's pretty big. 2024, it's about 400,000 people will grow by here in Australia. So to put that in context, Canberra's a 510,000 person community, Townsville a 200,000 person community. We are growing in 2025 by 2 Townsvilles, so two of Townsville. In 2024, we grew by the size of Canberra, so pretty amazing, the population growth rate. We look at the median values of Australian real estate, we can see it's getting up there. A median value of a house in Australia is $1,162,000. So obviously houses make great investments. It's getting harder for me as a person that negotiates finding real estate to find houses that stack up, that are affordable, that will create capital growth. But we're finding a few little hot spots and hot picks out there, but it is certainly getting harder. So I would imagine the median value of a house around Australia will, certainly if something's worth 700, there's no reason why it won't end up becoming $1 million, because we can see the midpoint is already there. Apartments a little bit more affordable, as usual, again, you've got to always be invested to keep up with the growth rates, otherwise you kind of miss out. We look at some of the yields, they're pretty incredible, the vacancy rates. You can see as of December 2024 there, Sydney's vacancy 2.5%, Melbourne 1.8%. A balanced market where no one's in charge of rents improving is a 3% marketplace. So in other words, the landlord's not in charge nor the tenant. So anything below 3% usually means the landlord's more in charge, and certainly below 2% means the landlord's more in charge. So you can see Melbourne and Brisbane, Adelaide there, and Perth and Hobart. You've probably got more of the landlord being in charge, which allows for opportunity for rent growth. If we look at Sydney though, you can see the top left slide or or graph, the forecast for rent is to grow as well. So what's the forecast for capital growth? This is what Dr. Andrew Wilson sort of positioned was you've got belief markets where effectively the large proportion of the population believes that the markets in Perth and Brisbane are going to be the best performers. And so it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy when you look at where the herd is buying, if you like. You can see that the herd is buying in Brisbane and Perth today. And so that's where you'll get a instant level of capital growth. If you look at the value markets where there's pre-belief in the marketplace, in other words, the actual mathematics, the price, the rents, the ability to negotiate, you've got your value market, which is really driven around Melbourne. The herd is not shopping there at the moment, so it means you can get a better price, you can negotiate better terms, but you won't get that instant aggregated growth. So it's an interesting proposition. Do you prefer to buy on belief and momentum, or do you prefer to buy on value and maths? And so there's no right or wrong. Generally, belief and momentum create shorter capital growth spurts, and value and maths gives you a longer bite at the entire cycle. So places like Adelaide and Perth are midway through their cycle, and Melbourne hasn't started. So that's an interesting way to consider the value proposition. And so no right or wrong. Short term, you make more money in a momentum market fueled by belief. But of course, you don't want to be last into a belief-based marketplace, because you may just get caught if the herd changes its belief, then you can end up paying too much for real estate. So I think I did that slide, but yeah, this is how I would assess to understand some marketplaces which I'm analyzing and buying in at the moment. Melbourne, you've got your value proposition, so it's pre-belief. No one believes in it. That gives you basically buying power. Sydney also, so it's a lack of belief in the Sydney market. It gives you buying power, but it's a bit secular. There's certain areas where people never stop believing in Sydney. And a great example would be the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Eastern suburbs of Sydney, the value of buying in the eastern suburbs in Sydney left that market 20 years ago. But in other words, to get a bargain in Bellevue Hill, Sydney, you needed to be around 20 years ago. But the belief of buying in eastern suburbs of Sydney has never left. And so it's a perpetual belief market that and the results are there. It keeps growing and growing in value. So Sydney can be quite secular in its nature. In other words, each section of Sydney is quite independent at the moment, but for the most part, it's very value orientated for what generally investors shop at, that sort of price point. Then Perth and Brisbane, very much driven off belief. Brisbane, there's a massive belief around the Olympics, you've got people who are jumping into that marketplace off that really belief system. It's probably the most popular market in Australia with Perth. So the herd is shopping there, and that pushes up values. I think you've still got sort of 2 or 3 years in places like Brisbane and Perth, so it's not too late. And so you would probably put it at 9 o'clock on the property clock, which is good. As yields compress, eventually you would have to go, maybe it's a bit too hot and you need to question the maths. And this is where quite often real estate is illogical at times. The best maths doesn't actually equal the best capital growth quite often. If you were shopping on maths, you would shop on Melbourne. But when you buy into Melbourne, you're not going to get capital growth straight away. So it really depends on how you value things. I explain it as the Bitcoin effect. The value of Bitcoin, for example, would have been at $10,000 of Bitcoin. There was a lot of value in Bitcoin. Now it's over $100,000. Is there value in Bitcoin, or is there a belief in Bitcoin? Well, the answer is Bitcoin is driven off belief. It's a belief asset. More people believe in it, it pushes the prices up. Less people believe in it, it pushes the prices down. So the ultimate for an investor, of course, is to buy on value and then get before belief comes to the marketplace. And obviously, the problem with that strategy is it may take 3 years, 4 years for belief to arrive. And some people get lucky. They buy the value, the maths, and then 6 months later, belief comes along and pushes the value up. So there's no right or wrong. There just is. Just trying to explain it so you guys are across it. And we can see here in a belief marketplace, Brisbane, over the last 12 months, shortage of stock, lots of demand, the herd shopping there. And look at these numbers. January 2024, a sort of middle-class suburb like Ripley has gone from $716,000 to $800,000. You can see every single month the market rising in value. And again, for property investors, this is great because they can make a faster rate of gain. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at the moment. Buying in Brisbane, you're just like, it's going up. And then you can look at the tale of Melbourne, which is not a belief marketplace. No one believes in it except those that value, like myself. You can see it is ridiculously inexpensive. It's at its all-time delta difference between Sydney, which the two markets have over, close to 6 million people. So a lot of value in that Melbourne marketplace. And we can see by virtue of the Oxford Economics that gives me property forecasts, I can see that Melbourne, you look at the sort of top left forecasting model, Melbourne median house and unit price collective, you can see its value point. It's basically 2025. It's going backwards, it's going sideways, but then in 2026, 2027, it's kind of when the belief comes back into the marketplace, which is cool. And same for Geelong, exactly the same sort of profile, which is cool. It's sort of like if you were buying Bitcoin before it goes up in value, same concept. Those people who bought Bitcoin at $5,000 of Bitcoin are laughing right now. So they bought on value, everyone else that came later bought on belief. And so you have to sort of think about it like that with Melbourne. It's pre-belief. But overall, and this is kind of the last slide, is when we went through COVID, we had two massive demand drivers: low interest rates and lifestyle choices. So what happened was you had the rates cut to the point where they were so cheap to borrow money that all of a sudden people chose new lifestyle choices. People who weren't otherwise first home owners became first home buyers. People who wanted to renovated and push the value of their properties up because they could borrow money cheaply. People upgraded their home. And so low interest rate and lifestyle choices created such demand drivers that eventually you had a supply and demand mismatch because you had the herd shopping at once. Everyone believed in property and you had higher prices off the back of it. Probably the opposite now, but it's going to also lead to higher prices, is you've got the supply drivers actually being the lead indicator to higher prices. So you've got a shortage of well-located land. you've got higher interest rates, and you've got basically construction costs, which basically create almost like a unfeasible marketplace to produce real estate. And so a lot of major developers just simply can't bring stock to market. So you've got a restriction of stock coming to market. We've got the lowest approvals on record, the lowest supply landing on record. And again, approvals aren't are just a piece of paper. You've actually got to go and build the real estate. So you've got this real challenge of well-located land and construction costs meeting, and eventually that will lead to higher prices. So if we start to see rates drop and construction not improve, we're going to run into a demand-supply mismatch, which will probably equal higher prices. So what's the future of real estate? Definitely higher prices. But that's it from me. I will stop sharing my screen. Hopefully that all went well. I appreciate you guys tuning in, but I've got to duck off because we have a big team get together this morning, which will be nice. But I hope that was interesting, and your regular host will be back next week to talk to you about wealth. So thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for watching another episode of Wealth Coffee Chat, folks. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a thing when we go live. Improve your portfolio and investing game, folks, with Wealth Coffee Chats live every morning at 8:10 each weekday. Make sure you join us. Previous episodes are also available wherever you get your podcasts, folks, as well as our other podcasts from the 6 Star team here at positivementor.com.au.